What is good, Josh? I'm the Smooth Game Man, back with yet another reaction video, baby. And today, we are back with some more anime reactions, bro. I wanted to go ahead and give this another try. I realized that probably more than one video would be needed to get you guys' attention to see if you guys want to see more. So I do have a couple here planned to go and watch today. Now, got my good friend back there, Naruto, and you know what I'm saying, Itachi's eye. Back there watching with us here today. And don't get put in that genjutsu, don't look too hard. But this is going to be every Akatsuki member explained. I want to go ahead and check this one out. See if there's more in-depth information I can find out about the Akatsuki. One of the best villain groups in anime. I mean, all these guys had different motivations to fight for the same goal. Now, of course, all of them in the end, pretty much almost all of them find a good, happy ending to their own stories. And they're probably all like what you would call like, not forgotten heroes, but abandoned heroes, forsaken heroes. You know, at one point they thought they were doing really good, got double crossed, turned evil, and at the last moments of their life kind of repent, basically. That's almost how almost all of them kind of go, but we're gonna go ahead and see how this one plays out for us here. If you guys do enjoy it, please do me a favor, hit the video with a like, subscribe, and turn that bell on for post notifications so you guys can know when new videos are coming out. Really helps push it to other people and show that love and support. And I love every single one of you guys that show support to these types of videos, because I love anime. So the more anime content I can do for you guys, honestly, the better. Now, I don't know if I'd ever get into this lane where I'm talking about it and explaining it. I might give my thoughts and opinions on animes or things that I'm doing. Like right now, currently, what I'm watching is Hunter, Black Clover. What the fuck is that? Something just dropped from my scene. Hold on, y'all. Finally got whatever that was. I don't know if y'all saw it. I don't know if it caught it on camera, but something fell from my ceiling. And I had to, you know what I'm saying, figure out what the heck it was. And it ended up being not that much. You know, so we got rid of that quickly. But now, back to the video. Thank y'all for the love and support, man. I would love to do more anime content. I'm not going to get into the lane of talking about stuff like this, but maybe sharing my opinions and stuff. I'm over here recapping because I forgot what I said. I know right now I'm watching Hunter, Black Clover, and Kuroko's Basketball. Those are the three that I'm watching right now. I'm almost done with Kuroko's Basketball. I got like 2-3 episodes left on issues, and I don't have really much time to sit there and watch, and I just have it like playing in the background. A lot of times I do watch mine in English dub, so that way I can actually listen to it and do other stuff like edit videos and stuff while I'm watching anime. But that one's in English sub, so I really want to kind of sit there and focus on what's going on so I can not get lost in the sauce. So I only got 2 more episodes though, so I'm gonna make some time to finish that one up, and I'll be completely wrapped up with that one. I give my opinions on that or any other animes that I've caught up on or fully watched and completed, or I can give you guys just my top 3, top 5, you know, whatever you guys want to see. So let me know in the comment section. Now, all that's out the way, shouldn't have to worry about copyright as always, so we're gonna go ahead and be able to watch this one basically clean through. Let's get it.
Okay, this is gonna be another Herculean task of a video, but every Sharingan Explained just hit 60,000 views and it's still growing. So here's another Everything Explained. And like we did with the first video, we're gonna be ranking all the things we explain here. And what are we explaining today? The Akatsuki. It's cool, there's only like 17 of them, right? I can tell you undoubtedly that this video took me over 2 hours to film. So please like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell because it's hard work over here and it's always nice
so different.
Get a couple bell rings. I'm also in the process of healing from my Sasuke tattoo, so you'll have to stick with me there. So just before we get started, I'd like to tell you that this is gonna include every single Akatsuki member, past and present. I guess it's all kind of past nowadays, and the members of Taka, even though they're not really Akatsuki members. So with absolutely no further ado, let's get to last on the list in terms of strength, Black Zetsu. And I can already hear what you're saying.
But Black Zetsu's the manifested will of Kaguya, and he was able to hold off Sasuke and Naruto at the very end of the war.
Yes, but also we've technically never seen him do any jutsus outside of a small amount of wood release, and he's only Zetsu when he's combined with his other half, White Zetsu, which is literally just Hashirama's cells. But that doesn't mean he's not strong, because once again, he is the manifested will of Kaguya, who she released from her sleeve as she was being sealed in Chibuka Tensei by Hagoromo and Hamura. His entire purpose on Earth was to make sure that Kaguya could be revived, and he actually did his job. Even though we don't really see him bust out a lot of hand signs and do jutsus, he's able to use all 5 basic chakra natures and yin and yang, which makes sense because he is technically an Otsutsuki. And let's not forget the fact that he is probably one of the smartest people in the entire show, since he was able to manipulate everyone he wanted to into bringing back Kaguya, essentially. He posed as the incarnate will of Madara Uchiha in order to trick the Uchihas into thinking that the only way for them to achieve peace would be the infinite Tsukiyomi. Well, at least you tricked Madara. And when it really boils down to it, that's really the only person you gotta trick. He did this by changing the Uchiha writing on the tablet in their secret hideout in order to incite violence between them and the Senjus, making 1,000 years of war so they wouldn't intertwine and awaken Rinigans that could then be used in order to reseal Kaguya. But on his own, he's really not that strong. And that's why he's last. Speaking of trying to sleep with Uchihas, next up on the list is Karin. Karin is actually probably one of the least understood characters in all of Naruto, just point blank. What do you think of when you think Karin? You probably think of her ability to be bitten in, and then she heals the person who's ever biting her. And then you probably think of the fact that Sasuke used that to plot armor himself into surviving through multiple fights, most importantly, the Killer Bee fight. But here's the thing, Karin's a full-blooded Uzumaki and a project of Orochimaru. The fact that she can actually be bitten and then instantly heal someone is something that Orochimaru did to her in projects. But why is she so compatible for it is the real question, and that's because she's an Uzumaki. Her chakra reserves are massive, double the time of Naruto, since Naruto himself is only half Uzumaki. And sure, like I said, you're probably thinking of all the times she saved Sasuke's life. But remember the time that Karin let Tsunade bite her and restored her chakra reserves? Tsunade, a full-blooded Senju who heaps 100 healings amounts of chakra in her Byakuya seal. And who was able to bring all that back? Oh, Karin. And she could still keep moving after she was done. On top of that, she's actually probably the best sensor-type ninja in Naruto. Period. She has an ability called the Mind's Eye of Kagura, which allows her to target any person's chakra signature subconsciously. She can simply track you without putting any forthright effort from countries away. Not only that, she can see your chakra signature, how much you have, and whether or not you're under genjutsu. She can even see if you're lying when you talk to her by reading your chakra signature. She can then use that on herself to see if she's ever under genjutsu, effectively making her invulnerable to it. Oh, and on top of that, like most full-blooded Uzumakis, she can use adamantite chains, which she used to destroy most of Tobi's wooden statue. And she's second to the bottom on this list. As a support character,
I gotta say, the only reason she should be second to the bottom is probably because offensively, like if you had to fight her, you're probably not losing. Like if it's a one-on-one, straight one-on-one, you're not losing. But if she's there to support somebody else, oh, she's the best support character in the world.
Probably the strongest person on this list, but we're talking compatibility. But you know who would just simply never need Karin? The next person on our list. Hidan. Here's the thing, of the Akatsuki proper, Hidan is absolutely the weakest member. And I know that sounds absolutely insane because he's immortal, right? And you're right, he is, but that's pretty much all he has going for him. He can't use ninjutsu, but because of that, his kenjutsu is very impressive, wielding a huge scythe that was able to fight off Asuma and, well, Kakashi for a little bit. And yes, he is immortal, so he can use a technique that allows him to bind the damage he inflicts upon himself to the people whose blood he puts in his mouth. And that is very impressive and very cool because, you know, stab him all you want, he's gonna be okay. Unless you know his abilities beforehand. If you know this man can't use ninjutsu, is immortal, and will try and get your blood to use in some weird kind of cult-like ritual, just avoid him. Use long distance to keep him away. He can't close the distance. He does have a very interesting backstory, though, being a member of Joshinism, essentially being the only person we know to be blessed by Lord Joshin. And it is through him that we learn the rules of Joshinism, essentially trying to bring death to those near you so they never have to fear dying. But this is only for people who you find yourself close to, not proximity-wise, like people who you have feelings for, which is why he never tried to kill Kakuzo, because he hated Kakuzo. On top of this, he's not technically immortal. He's actually just invulnerable. But if he doesn't eat or get water, he will die, and that's canonical knowledge. So he is dead in that hole. For sure. But we do have theories about him being an Otsutsuki, and that was posted in a recent video that you can check out right about here. Speaking of needing water to survive, next on our list is Suigetsu. And Suigetsu is actually a very interesting character that I feel like not enough of us talk about. And he's also the only tolerable person from Taka outside of Jugo. Jugo's okay. Suigetsu was actually called the second coming of the demon, named after his brother who had collected all 7 swords of the mist in order to use in battle. And before Orochimaru found him, this was his goal. But after he was reconnected with Sasuke, he was able to pursue that goal that Orochimaru had originally thwarted. Orochimaru being interested in his clan-specific Keke Genkai. This Keke Genkai essentially being a hydrification technique that allows him to turn certain parts of his body into water, making him almost unhittable, a lot like a Kamui. Unlike a Kamui, it also offered him the ability to extend and grow in size, the size of his limbs. It also allows him to shoot bullets, water bullets specifically, out of his hand. So it's a bit like Kimimaru's bone bullet technique, partial expansion jutsu, and Kamui all in one, and his entire clan had this. We don't hear a lot about the Hozuki clan, which is probably a good thing, because if they all got together, they would probably run through any hidden village they wanted to, unless of course that hidden village had lightning style users, which is Suegitsu's only real weakness. All of this ability, and Orochimaru still wanted Sasuke. Don't even get me started on the fact that he can literally put water into his muscles to make them bigger so he can pick up heavier things. Speaking of big muscles and heavy things, next up on our list is Jugo, who is actually, fun fact, the entire reason curse marks exist. Jugo is from an unnamed clan that apparently has a Kekkei Genkai that allows them to just consistently pull chakra nature into themselves. This is also something that Madara could do while he was alive, so I don't know, maybe Madara's parents were half this unnamed clan, half Uchiha, who knows? Or Madara was just incredibly overpowered. Regardless, Jugo could constantly take in nature energy, but this isn't all he could do, because he could also pass that nature energy on to people, like a charging bank for Sasuke's plot armor. And while he is incredible at taking in senjutsu energy, nature chakra, he's actually not considered a perfect sage, mostly because he hasn't practiced in senjutsu. He's just able to take in that chakra energy and convert it into like power thrusters in his arm. I mean, I consider him a sage, but a lot of people don't. But a fun, lesser known thing about Jugo is that he can actually talk.
I mean, I give it to him. Like, he's a sage. He's not obviously like a sage of different animals, but I mean, I give it to him.
To animals. Like that, one character from MHA who's useless. But here's the thing, he's not useless. Jugo, that is, the MHA character, absolutely is. He can use that senjutsu chakra in order to reform his limbs into whatever specific type of form he wants them to be, looking like a piston arm or a giant axe. This is essentially Kawaki's entire ability scheme. So once again, let's mark another check in the column of Orochimaru was figuring this shit out long before Amado or the Otsutsuki were. I mean, Orochimaru's he's like a scientific artist, genius when it comes down to this shit. But speaking of evil art, next up is Deidara. Deidara was a member of the Explosion Corps in the Hidden Stone, and as you could imagine, a village hidden in stone needs a lot of explosives. He was only 19 years old when he defected from the Hidden Stone and went to the Akatsuki, making him the youngest member of the Akatsuki. I don't even want to think about what would have happened if he had gotten to live a full life. He would have got so insanely powerful. I mean, think about it. He beat Gaara in a fight in the village hidden in the sand, and he beat Isobu in a fight in the village hidden in the mist. He took on two-tailed beast Jinchurikis in their home fields. And then he...
Is that really fair, though? I mean, I'm not going to speak on the third, but Gaara was literally trying to protect his entire village. Like, if he had fought him anywhere else, if they had fought still in the sand, but like in the desert part where the people and civilization were not there, Gaara wins. If they fight in any other place and location, Gaara wins. The only reason this man beat him is because he dropped an entire bomb on his people, so he went and rushed his sand to save them and had no more to protect himself and died. Well, not he died, obviously got defeated and then got Shukaku sucked out of him. No diddy. But I'm not counting. I mean, obviously we got to count it. It's a dub for him, but you know, there's certain circumstances. You know, it's like I don't know. I mean, that's obviously unfair to say stuff like this, man. Like, because it translates to like almost every aspect of life. Like, even when you go to sports, it's like, well, I mean, this team would have won if this player wasn't injured. Well, yeah, that player was injured, so well, we got to count the dub. But I'm not giving him any fantastic feats off that, outside of the fact that he got the dub and he used at least his brain to trick Gaara into protecting his village.
He beat Sasuke in a fight, and then plot armor was like, I'm actually not made of cells, so your attack that destroys things on a cellular level won't affect me. But how was he able to achieve this power? And it's all his explosion release, which was a Kekkei Genkai that allowed him to use earth and lightning chakra natures simultaneously. But how was he able to use this Kekkei Genkai? And that's a great question. By using the mouths that he grew on his hands and over his heart. And I know what you're thinking right now, but
How do you grow mouths on your hands?
that's a great question. I'm going to answer it. In the book Akatsuki Hiden, a canon light novel, where most of this information is coming from, we find out that Datara actually stole a forbidden jutsu scroll from the village hidden in the stone and then learned it. And that's what allowed him to grow his hand mouths. I don't know who wrote that jutsu, but I mean, technically it was pretty effective. Datara was essentially capable of 4 jutsus. Well, 5 if you count his self-destruction. The first of which was C1, which he could use to mold his clay into little spiders or walking guys that could track and follow
Really
their
small
target.
things.
C2 allowed Datara to make a massive dragon that he could ride around out of his explosive clay, but this would take him a while to form the clay since the dragon was so large. His C3 attack essentially made a nuke out of clay that was in the shape of a teardrop with a little face and wings that he could draw on a village or anywhere really and wipe it off the face of the earth. It was as strong as Almighty Push, and that's a Rinnegan ability. His C4 allowed him to atomize a clone into cellular level little mites of clay that if breathed in would disintegrate you from the inside out. And lastly, his C0 was also essentially a nuke, but this nuke exploded him and destroyed everything within a certain kilometer radius at a cellular level. That's including Sasuke and his summon, but rules of physics don't apply to him now, do they? Speaking of Datara though, next up we have his longtime partner, Sasori. Sasori is probably the strongest puppet master in the history of Naruto, and he became that because Sakamo Hatake, aka the White Fang, aka Kakashi's father, killed his mother and his father in battle, so he had to be raised by Granny Chiyo, aka the #1 waifu in all of Naruto. Granny Chiyo began to teach him puppetry in order to cheer him up, but eventually Sasori, in his weird twisted mind, had said, listen, you know what, I'm gonna make a puppet of my mom and my dad and see if they love me. And believe it or not, they didn't, because they were puppets that he was controlling. So, in order to circumvent actually meeting new people, Sasori just started assassinating people and starting to see if he could make their bodies into puppets. And guess what? He succeeded. Yay!
He definitely succeeded.
The most important of the people he killed, then stuffed and attached chakra strings to would be the 3rd Kazekage, aka the Kazekage of the Iron Sand, also known as the strongest Kazekage in the history of the Hidden Leaf Sand. You get it. And somehow, in an Orochimaru level of mad scientistry, he was able to allow the Kazekage, even after his death and puppification, to continue using his magnetic release Kekkei Genkai of Iron Sand. How? I don't know. Feats like this earned him the moniker of Sasori of the Red Sand, because he was able to wipe out entire armies using a special poison that only he had the antidote to. We know that Sasori murdered and then turned at least 300 people into puppets, because that's how many puppets he had while fighting against Granny Chiyo and Sakura. We already covered the 3rd Kazekage puppet, but the most important of those puppets was Hiriko, the one whose appearance we thought Sasori looked like until it was revealed that Sasori was actually hiding inside of Hiriko, since he had also puppetified himself. Hiriko was Sasori's 11th puppet and probably his favorite. And Hiriko was the puppet he used to administer the poison I talked about earlier. Hiriko's tail also alludes to a scorpion, which is what Sasori means in Japanese. And since we're talking about Sasori, let's talk about the person who defeated Sasori in a 1v1 in order to convince him to join the Akatsuki. That brings us to Conan.
Conan beat
That was
him.
only in the Storm games. It's not actual canon information.
I know, okay?
I was gonna say, I
but
want to see it.
Still puts her above him in my book. Conan was one of the Ame orphans with Yahiko and Nagato, and she grew up in the worst place on earth, the Hidden
She
Rain,
almost killed
which had
Obito.
skyscrapers like 30 years before Konoha. So like, what do they know? Like, Konoha had like a feudal town built out of wood, and they had like some dystopian cyberpunk 2077 vibe going on there. Like, how? Conan was one of the original members of the Akatsuki. It was just her, Yahiko, and Nagato until Yahiko died and they decided to take on more people. That's when they met Toby, who's being influenced by Black Setsu. And I mean, Jesus, that all went down the drain for them. And then again, I guess it was always going to go down the drain for them because Madara put his eyes in Nagato. So it's really all starting from the jump. God, they were screwed. Why do I put Konan so high on the list? And that's a great question. One, she could use wind, water, earth, and yang release. She was an incredible sensor type ninja. Three, she can turn her entire body into paper using a technique called Dance of the Shikigami that essentially, like Suigetsu and like Obito, makes her unhittable as long as she can change that part that you're aiming at into paper. Four, she's an absolute genius, probably the smartest person in the Akatsuki, who with prep time was able to push Obito into using the Izanagi, which permanently blinded one of his eyes. It's hacks. Izanagi, for those of you who don't remember, literally rewrites reality and projects your body into another body you create using your eye. It's a yin-yang release, and it probably shouldn't exist. And I don't want to spoil anything for you here, but Obito is the strongest member of the Akatsuki. Unless you're weird and you include Madara. There's like, why? Also, lastly, you would assume, oh, she's made of paper, just hit her with fire release. No, Jiraiya did that, and it didn't work. That's why he went for a little swim he never came back up from. Speaking of dying, next up we have Kakuzo. I guess the speaking of dying thing really could have purchased any of these transitions. They're all dead. Kakuzo is very old. He's actually from the village hidden in the waterfalls, and his backstory is actually kind of sad. He was considered the village hidden in the waterfalls' most elite ninja. In order, prior to the first Great Ninja War, to get a leg up on other hidden villages, the village hidden in the waterfall sent him to assassinate Hashirama Senju. Oh, you know the guy that's called the god of shinobi? And guess what? He failed because most people would fail. And instead of his village being like, hey, you know what, man, you tried. They call him the god of shinobi over there. That was a tall order. They shamed him so much so he eventually came to hate the village, which is fair, honestly, and left eventually, coinciding with the Akatsuki. But before he did that, he broke out of prison, killed the village elders, stole their hearts, and started living as a bounty hunter. Oh, he also stole the village's forbidden jutsus and then lived the rest of his life taking the hearts of powerful shinobis, shoving them into his chest in order to elongate his life. Remember that part earlier where I told you about how Hidan and Kakuzo hated each other? It's because when Kakuzo originally joined the Akatsuki, his first ever task was to go kill an immortal who happened to be Hidan. And after they fought and Hidan destroyed one of Kakuzo's hearts, taking an interest in each other, they recruited Hidan to the Akatsuki. And what better thing to do than to join the two people who had almost just murdered each other, even though they're both some semblance of immortal, and put them together on a team. And amongst the Akatsuki, they were known as the Zombie Team. Kakuzo was able to use a technique called Earth Grudge Fears, which essentially made his body into a bunch of stitches that he could use to elongate his limbs, attack from a long distance, or even reattach the limbs of his friends, like Deidara's arm. He was also capable of every single chakra release and could shoot them out of his 4 cores, depending on which nature transformation he wanted to use. He could even harden his body using the human spear technique in order to prevent usually fatal techniques that were about to hit him from actually killing him. On top of this, his taijutsu went hard AF. He boxed a Sharingan-wielding Kakashi and was totally fine. Speaking of putting Sharingans where they don't belong, next up we got Orochimaru. Goodness, where to even start with Orochimaru? He was one of the legendary San.
That's tough. Orochimaru above all of them? Is Orochimaru really taking them out? He might. But then the question becomes, dang, is he too low then? If he can take them out, he can't take out some of the other ones higher?
He was one of the most powerful people to ever come out of the Leaf. He started doing human experiments when he got obsessed with achieving immortality that Hiruzen later discovered and then let him go. He could use the 3 gates technique, which has been shown to be able to stop tailed beast bombs. He reverse engineered the Karma Seal before the Ototsukis even landed on Earth by extracting Jugo's DNA and kind of formulating a way in order to pass his psyche, power, everything onto those who he marked with it, effectively granting him a sort of immortality that the Ototsukis have. that if his body is destroyed, he can simply slither on out of a curse mark like he did with Anko. He basically soloed Victor from Boruto with little to no effort. He's killed 2 Kage in his life, Gaara's father Rasa and Hiruzen, both of which arguably deserved it. He recreated the Wood Keke Genkai release in Yamato. Oh, and he mastered Edo Tensei and basically allowed the Shinobi allied forces to win the war arc. But even with all that, he still isn't the strongest person on this list. In fact, he isn't even the strongest animal person on this list. And that brings us to our next installment, Kisame. Kisame is also known as the tailless tailed beast because of his immense amount of chakra. Kisame was originally a shinobi for the Hidden Mist that was put in charge of protecting certain companies like the Cypher Corps. However, when he was cornered by Konoha Shinobi, he, instead of electing to allow the Cypher Corps to be taken by Konoha and then interrogated by Ibiki, killed them in order to protect the information that they knew. And while the 4th Mizukage commended him on his loyalty to the Hidden Mist, the person who he looked up to and also his superior, Uguki Suekazan, was shown to actually be selling information to the enemy. Uguki was actually the yielder of Samehada previously to Kisame. So Kisame murdered him and took Samehada. But this disillusioned Kisame to just Hidden Leaf Village culture in general, deciding that this world of lies wasn't for him. And that is when Toby reached out to him, aka Obito, and sold him on the Eye of the Moon plan. And Kisame agreed, thinking that a world filled with truth would be a just place. Kisame's biggest ability was the amount of chakra he had. That's why he earned the title of the tailless tailed beast.
Oh, y'all, I think somebody just knocked on my door. Hold on one second, y'all. But he is speaking facts, though. All right, yeah. No, nobody knocked on the door. I'm tripping. Sometimes I be forgetting I got a dog. If somebody actually knocked on the door, she would start barking, so I'm good.
By the way, I would love to tell you why Kisame looks like a shark, but nobody knows. Kisame was actually regarded as the best member of the Akatsuki for bringing in targets alive. He was able to bring in Roshi, the Jinchuriki of the Four Tails, Son Goku, with little to no effort. He also pushed Might Guy to open up to the 6th gate against a 30% powered water clone. Might Guy had to open to the 7th gate to fight Kisame, and he didn't even have Samehada, which he could also fuse with in order to fix any injuries to himself
he might be
and
better
get a massive boost in chakra. But what's insane is that Kisame wasn't even the strongest person on his team. No, that's because Itachi was on his team, and Itachi's stronger than him. I'm sorry. I don't have to give you Itachi's backstory, right? Fugaku, the leader of the Uchiha's first son, prodigal son, awakens his Mangekyo Sharingan when he watches Shisui die, gets his Kotsumatsu Kame, shoves it in a raven, puts it in Naruto so he can reprogram himself when he knows he's going to get re-brought back to life. The best ever Shuriken Jutsu user has Amaterasu in one eye, which is a black flame that he can blow in any direction, and if it hits you, it'll burn you until you're dead, or he releases it Tsukiyomi in his other eye, which puts you in a Genjutsu for 3 seconds, but to you feels like 72 hours if you're getting stabbed in the stomach, I guess. And incomplete Susanoo that has a Yata mirror in one arm, that is a mirror that essentially can change chakra natures depending on what jutsu he sees you sending at him and nullify any jutsu that hits it, which, by the way, behind that Yata mirror is a Susanoo, which is considered the perfect defensive mechanism in Naruto. And in the other hand has the Sword of Totsuka, which if he stabs you with it, seals you in a permanent genjutsu called the World of Drunken Dreams, where essentially your soul gets sent to a dimension where you're the dizziest you've ever been, and that's just eternity. He fought Sasuke to a standstill while his entire objective was simply getting Orochimaru out of him. He killed his entire tribe, and he beat Orochimaru in a fight at the young age of 20. But since we're talking about members of the Akatsuki with broken optical jutsus, next up we have Nagato, aka Pain. Where to even start here? Okay, first,
I thought this has been a topic for forever too. Who would win in a fight, legitly Pain or Itachi? I don't know. I mean, obviously, all 6 of those are incredibly hard to beat. Jiraiya struggled and barely beat him. Naruto was able to, thankfully, because he went into non-tails mode. Itachi versus all 6? I don't know. Itachi versus just straight up one-on-one? Like the head pain? Probably handling that with these, though. Oop.
First off, I guess technically Sasori wasn't the only person to make his dead friends puppets, because Nagato picked up Yahiko's body about 30 seconds after it hit the dirt and put a couple of piercings in it, and then boom, guess who's Yahiko now, bitch? Nagato was obviously incredibly broken. He was a full-blooded Uzumaki, which means he had even more chakra than Kisame. He used this chakra to essentially nail himself into the ghetto statue, aka the demonic statue of the outer path, that he would use to communicate with his 6 paths of pain. These chakra rods in his body and in the 6 paths of pain could be used to control them, kind of like incredibly long-range puppets, except each of those puppets had a hilariously broken ability that we'll cover right now. The first path was Nagato's favorite, Yahiko, aka the Deva path, which used his ability because each one of the paths used a different one of Nagato's Rinnegan abilities to either universal pull things to him or almighty push things away from him. This is what Madara uses against the Shinobi allied forces, and it's what Nagato uses against Naruto when he starts to manifest tail. Next up is the Ashura path, which is essentially able to change its arms and face and entire body into weapons that it can fire at long distances. We have this path to thank for essentially breaking Shinobi strikers for a solid 2 weeks. But essentially, the Ashura path can turn its hands into serrated blades and throw those blades, or fire off missiles from its forearm, because that should be a Rinnegan ability, right? Next up is the human path, which allows that path member to put its hand on the head of anyone really and read their mind, or yank their soul out of their body. But this is the least powerful of the paths, which is why Nagato sacrifices it very readily to save the animal path in his fight against Naruto. And speaking of the animal path, this one's actually pretty self-explanatory. It allows Nagato to summon hell creatures from some dimension, like a giant bird or a giant 2-headed dog that have Rinnegans in their faces and receivers in their body. It's essentially just the summoning technique of your nightmares. And that takes us to the Predapath, which has actually been pretty well covered in Boruto, though not directly, since the Predapath is able to use the Rinnegan ability to absorb ninjutsus fired at it. Momoshiki displays this with the Rinnegan he has in his hand, and it's also what the Karma does. Essentially, this jutsu's only weakness is that if it absorbs too much senjutsu, it'll turn into a stone. Senjutsu being sage chakra or nature chakra. And lastly, we have the Naraka path, aka the King of Hell. The King of Hell is essentially the best interrogation technique of all time, because the Naraka path can activate it, and if you see it, it'll wrap a big old tongue around your neck and will begin to ask you questions. And if you lie during these questions, it'll rip your tongue out of your face and you will die. But if you tell the truth during all these questions, you will simply faint and be extremely exhausted. Speaking of being extremely exhausted, I'm very tired. So thank God this is the last entry, and you're tripping if you don't think he's the most powerful member of the Akatsuki. We have Obito Uchiha. Obito's abilities are absolutely astoundingly terrifying. With his Kamui, essentially.
Before he obviously has to explain it, it's so ironic too. All top 3 have some form of Sharin/Rinnegans too. Take them things as OP.
Able to teleport any part of his body he wants to into the Kamui dimension, making him virtually unhittable. And you would think, oh, because he has Kamui in that eye, surely that's the only Sharingan ability he has. But unfortunately, you'd be incorrect, because his Genjutsu was also absolutely insane. He was able to keep Yagura, aka the 3rd Mizukage, under Genjutsu for years and years and years, essentially making the Blood Mist Village out of an act of revenge for the Blood Mist Village killing, well, I guess forcing Kakashi to kill Rin. And it wasn't until somebody with a Byakugan, aka Ao, saw Yagura and was like, hey man, you're under Genjutsu, let's clear that up for you, that anyone even noticed. On top of that, he can spam his Monkey Kyo Sharingan ability, which is Kamui, as much as he wants, because he's half Hashirama cells, aka White Zetsu, which also allows him to use wood release. However, what's funny, even though he is the strongest member of the Akatsuki, he never wins a fight. Not against Kakashi, not against Minato, not against Kaguya. He kind of just spends the whole show running. But that being said, losing against Kaguya and Minato isn't really a knock against your name. What it really boils down to is he lost to Rin. He lost his heart to Rin. But then again, Rin lost her heart to Kakashi. Literally. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the list. No, I'm not forgetting Sasuke. What are you talking about?
Well, Nick, every other member of Taka was part of this list. Why not Sasuke?
Okay, is that what you want? You want Sasuke in the list? Okay, he's the strongest. Okay, he's stronger than Obito. He's got Akatsuki in one eye and Amaterasu in the other that allows him to essentially control the direction of his Amaterasu in any which way he wants. He has Kirin, Chidori, a perfect Susanoo, and he gets a Rinnegan from the Sage's 6th Pass that essentially allows him to use every Rinnegan ability in the show, and he only ever uses Space-Time Ninjutsu and Heavenly Foot Power or whatever, the one that allows him to switch positions with people. So yes, it's technically Sasuke, the strongest member of the Akatsuki ever, but he wasn't the strongest member while he was in the Akatsuki, so it's kind of a loophole. Whew. And wouldn't you know it, I was correct. This took me 2 hours to film. So if you haven't already,
30 minutes
please
is crazy.
like the video.
I want to know what he did for the other hour and a half that he cut out then.
See, I'll be telling y'all, bro, it be taking hella long to record these videos. And y'all just see the little edited out versions when we kind of chop things down. But to be fair, I do actually, for the most part, pretty much, I think I agree with that list. I mean, I had questions about Orochimaru, but seeing the guys above him, yeah. Could Conan maybe possibly eke out a little bit higher? Possibly. Do you think she was pretty strong in her, obviously, ability to turn herself into paper was a little bit broken. I think she clears Orochimaru, though. Maybe not. So maybe just only jumping up a couple spots there. But, I mean, for the most part, yeah. I mean, the Taka members all are pretty weak when compared to everybody else. Now, to say I guess Hidan really couldn't beat, like, Suigetsu in a fight because you try to slash him, you just turn into water. So, unless he can lick the water and still affect him, kind of not much you can do there. Jugo he could probably still get to because Jugo's just going to turn bloodlust and just start rushing him. He doesn't really have anything long distance, so he can start bull rushing him, and I think that would become where the problem is. Like, would he survive that ritual? I don't know. Now, obviously, he's very much so stronger when it comes to fighting other people, but how much you take into effect, like, would they beat each other one-on-one before you rate them? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Like, that would be a very interesting fight to see how that would possibly break down. Could Jewel come away with the dub? And am I just underestimating him? I don't know. Let me know down below who you think would win the fight between Jugo and Hidan. Let me know how that fight would go, honestly. Like I said, not too much, though, to change up with the list. I do agree that Sasuke is stronger than Obito. Obito is stronger than Pain. Pain is stronger than Itachi. I think the Pain and Itachi argument kind of like here and there, because I mean, honestly though, really, with Obito winning a fight against all 6 Paths of Pain at one time, could Sasuke, adult Sasuke, with his Rinnegan that he has from, you know, the Sage of 6 Paths, so Warrior Sasuke, yeah, I think he actually clears the 6 Paths pretty easily. I'm not gonna lie to you, but there's Obito. Maybe. I mean, the Kamui would stop him from being hit, so he would just pull them in one at a time. I think he probably could, but the Itachi Pain argument, it'd be pretty close fight. So I, for the most part, though, agree with the list. Have no gripes against it. Let me know what you guys think about it down below. Would you guys change any orderings of it? If you guys want more anime content, please let your boy know. We got more lists like this that we can go ahead and drop soon for you guys. So hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Of course, any feedback that you guys have would be much appreciated. Leave a like, subscribe, and turn that bell on at the end of the video, man. If you guys did enjoy me or the video, or to the video, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Your boy Sean Too Smooth, aka Black Okage, Black Avatar, and King Leo. My boy Naruto and Itachi's I say bye too. I'll catch you guys in the next one, man. I'm going for the day. Later.